Hello and welcome to Cutting Through. I'm Mitchell Plitnick. I'm going to talk today about a relatively minor, I think, scandal, but one that I think there's some lessons to be drawn from and some comments to be made. Um, and that is uh, around the National Football League and a star wide receiver in the National Football League named Puka Nacua, who got into some trouble. Um, I believe it was yesterday, when he went on uh, a streaming show hosted by a well-known right-wing troll named Aiden Ross. And we'll get into who Aiden Ross is in a minute. But during the course of this, uh, I don't know if you call it an interview, this recorded conversation, Nakua got himself into some trouble talking about refs and in the NFL, which is always good for a fine. But at one point, Ross sort of walked Nakua through what he would like him to do as a touchdown celebration, um, if he should score a touchdown, which in fact, in his next game, which actually just ended before I recorded this, and Nakua had a huge game. If he should score a touchdown in that game, he wanted to walk him through a scripted celebration that he was suggesting, and Nakua said he would do it. And what Ross had in mind was for Nakua to spin the football, then sort of flex, to put his fists up and, Superman thing, and then sort of wrap his hands, wipe his hands together in a very greedy fashion while hunched over, in a very stereotypical anti-Semitic image that everyone familiar with the tropes of anti-Semitism would immediately recognize. Nakua didn't. And when people saw the stream, Nakua got obviously a ton of criticism. Nakua is a 24-year-old man who grew up in Provo, Utah. Um, and I think one of the things that we sometimes forget, and it's not just about anti-Semitism, it can be about misogyny, it can be about homophobia, it can be about Islamophobia, it can be about any kind of bigotry. People often need to be educated. Not, I mean, let me not say often. Everyone needs to be educated. Nobody knows all the potential tropes and pitfalls and stereotypes. I remember years back sitting with a bunch of black friends of mine, and somehow the conversation got around to the old rhyme, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, which I had not realized when you see it in Pulp Fiction, and the thing you catch is the N word. Um, I thought that was Quentin Tarantino putting that in to be, to show the person who was saying it was particularly racist. And my friend said, no, 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 that's the original rhyme. I didn't know. Um, it's a small example. But I had done years of anti-racism work. I had never come across that particular fact. Um, you know, I've since come to understand it's common knowledge. Many people know this fact, but I didn't. And there's going to be things that we all don't realize are racist or misogynistic or homophobic, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and I see no reason to doubt Puka Nacua when he says that that was what happened to him on this show. He had no realization. After there was a furor raised over it, he posted on Instagram, and I'm going to quote him here. When I appeared the other day on a social media live stream, it was suggested to me to perform a specific movement as part of my next touchdown celebration. At the time, I had no idea this act was anti-Semitic in nature and perpetuated harmful stereotypes against Jewish people. I deeply apologize to anyone who was offended by my actions, as I do not stand for any form of racism, bigotry, or hate of another group of people. For the most part, it's a boilerplate statement. Um, but what else are you going to say here? I mean, it hits all the bases, and it says it right. It doesn't sound disingenuous, and it certainly isn't him saying I didn't say what I said or I didn't do what I do. He said I didn't know what I was doing, and he's a 24-year-old kid, as I said, from Provo, Utah. Um, As a college player, he spent 2 years at the University of Washington, 2 years at Brigham Young University. And, look, he may have many Jewish friends. I know from personal experience that Jews who have non-Jewish friends don't one day sit them all down and do an anti-Semitic tropes 101 course for them. Um, not everything that is anti-Semitic is going to be known to everybody, and we need to have the grace to educate rather than condemn people when they do these things. And I'm convinced that Nakua had no idea what this Aiden Ross character was doing, what he was setting him up for, which is basically to get his name more out there, to get even more eyes. He's a very successful live streamer. Um, but what I think is the issue, the reason that this comes up, because obviously it happened. Nakua apologized. I think for the most part, everyone moved on. But there were some things here that are worth noting. Um, and I think one of the main ones is that virtually all the criticism I saw was directed at Puka Nacua. And that's the wrong target. That is absolutely the wrong target. Look, he went on this guy's show, which shows, by the way, very poor judgment. Aiden Ross is a right-wing provocateur. He has interviewed, I mean, yes, he's interviewed Donald Trump, which I suppose anybody who's right-wing would, and is a streamer. I mean, that's I'm sure where he got a lot of his audience. But he's also interviewed Andrew Tate, the notorious misogynist, a proud misogynist, a man who calls himself a proud misogynist, and who rose to fame after his, I believe he was a mixed martial arts fighter, or one of those sorts of sports. After he left that, he made his name by being a hater of women in the most extreme way, and has in fact been accused of rape and sex trafficking, unsurprisingly. He interviewed Nick Fuentes, the proud Nazi. And I want to top this off by saying, and the reason that this video is titled as it is that Aiden Ross is Jewish. And so Aiden Ross is doing what he's doing um, for the express purpose. I mean, if you watch the video, you can see the guy's just a goofball and an idiot. And he's doing what he's doing because it gets him attention, it gets him likes, and it gets him money. And when we talk about how it gets him money, I think one of the things that we should be looking at is not the fact that Puka Nacua showed poor judgment, which he did in going on this guy's stream in the first place, but that working more with streamers is actually something the National Football League, who a couple of years ago struck a deal with YouTube to show all their games, YouTube TV. The National Football League has been encouraging their players to engage more with streamers, and apparently not paying a whole lot of attention to who their players are engaging with. Now, football in general certainly has a massive appeal to the right. Not only the extreme right, and certainly also to the left. I know I'm a football fan. I know other, certainly my experience is that, when I'm around a room full of random football fans, most of them are pretty conservative, um, in many senses of that word. Excuse me. Um, but I know other progressive football fans. It's not like people who are Democrats or who are liberals or who are even leftists, that there aren't some football fans in there. The NFL is particularly problematic for us, but still. Um, and so while I understand that, it's also pretty clear to me that the NFL is not looking to promote the kind of odious views that a person like Aiden Ross is promoting. So they need to do a much better job of educating their players, because Puka Nacua never, even if, I don't know Puka Nacua. I don't know what he thinks about things. I don't know how he approaches social justice. Like I said, I know he grew up in Utah. I know his mother's a Mormon. I know he lost his father at an early age. Um, I don't know a lot else about him other than he's an outstanding wide receiver. Um, But the NFL clearly needs to, just from a marketing standpoint, if nothing else, and certainly from a common decency standpoint, needs to do some educating of its players as to who they should be talking to. And I'm not suggesting that they shouldn't talk to right-wing figures. I mean, ESPN, just for an example, is stacked with right-wing figures. One of its most popular shows is Pat McAfee, who's a very clearly right-wing person. Is not although to my knowledge, he's never done anything extreme or racist of that nature, but he's clearly somebody who has a very soft spot for Donald Trump. I mean, that's the market, and I get that, but um, you know dealing with people like Aiden Ross, people who pander to the likes of Andrew Tate and Nick Fuentes, is not gonna do your marketing any good. So if nothing else, that should be that. And from the point of view of common decency, that's who they should be watching out for. Another, just a small aside here. One of the ways that I saw this reported, and this actually was on ESPN, um, was on the Rich Eisen show, which I happen to like. Um, I happen to like Rich Eisen, even though the every time he opens his mouth about anything political, it's obvious that he's shouldn't be talking about it. He's not very well informed on pretty much anything I've ever heard him talk about outside of sports. Um, and today he I think certainly inadvertently, I don't think he meant to do this because he clearly just wanted to make a comment and move on. But he inadvertently added some fuel to the fire, at least for his own listeners, when he said that Nacua first mimed spinning a dreidel. It's not what Nacua did. Okay. And he then connected it to the massacre in Australia over the weekend on the first day of Hanukkah. The dreidel, of course, being a symbol of Hanukkah itself. Nacua, like many NFL players, when he scores a touchdown, spins the football. He takes it and he just kind of spins it on its tip. Um, and that's what his first action in what Ross was having him do, was having him mime. That was what his first action was. It had nothing to do with a dreidel. And the reason it's a small point, but it shows, I think, considering how many people were probably watching or listening to or downloaded the podcast of the Rich Eisen show, and heard that, it makes it much, especially given the context of what just happened in Australia, it makes it, I think, much worse. And it was irresponsible of Eisen to do that. And it was ignorant of Eisen to do that because he should know better. He knows that he should at least know that Nacua spins the ball all the time, and he certainly knows that many players do. And that's what that was. I mean, if you looked at it, you could see that's what it was. That's what they even said it was when they were miming it. Um, but whatever. In Rich Eisen, not a big deal. A bigger deal is California Congressman Eric Swalwell. Swalwell, after the news of Nacua hit, tweeted this: the Los Angeles Jewish community, important to note that Nacua plays for the Los Angeles Rams. The Los Angeles Jewish community is on edge after the Bondi Beach massacre. And what does this asshole Puka Nacua do? He promises an anti-Semitic touchdown dance for his Thursday night game. He should apologize or be dropped. He's not going to be dropped because he's a good case for him being the best wide receiver in the NFL. But even that aside, um, you know, give the man a minute to actually say something. His apology was fine. I think everybody in general was ready to move on. Um, he and to attack Nacua personally, when anyone who watched this video could see that Nacua was set up and that Nacua didn't know what was going on. Um, I don't think it takes a lot, and if you think otherwise, then I think that's a case you need to sort of prove, um, because it certainly didn't look it to me on the video. Certainly Aiden Ross knew what he was doing, because Aiden Ross, this hand gesture of the greedy Jew is actually intentional. Aiden Ross has said it publicly that's why he uses that symbol. It's he knows it's anti-Semitic, and that's exactly why he uses it. This is exactly why I say he is a self-hating Jew. But Representative Swalwell, as a Protestant, um, you don't need to be saying this. You don't need to be going out there. Enough with politicians trying to score points. And I don't care, Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative. Enough with politicians trying to score points off anti-Semitism, trying to show how, oh, look how righteous you are in standing up for the Jews are capable of standing up for ourselves. Thank you very much. When we believe, and believe me, given the work, the amount of effort Jewish institutions do to have a voice in Washington, if they need you to say something, they'll let you know. Okay, they don't need you grandstanding in this way. Okay, we can take care of ourselves. Thanks very much. And if we need support, we'll ask. Believe me, we've never been reluctant. And we come back to um, Aiden Ross, who this really should be about, because Aiden Ross is somebody like many streamers. He's been banned for his hate speech. He's been banned for the sort of people he interviews. He from Twitch and some other streaming services. He um he is somebody who literally tries to profit off of uh putting outrageous and hateful things out there. So Representative Swalwell, the asshole here is not Puka Nacua. The asshole here is Aiden Ross. One thing I can say about Aiden Ross is, the term self-hating Jew gets thrown around a lot. You know, People like me will talk about how the way, for example, Theodore Herzl saw the Jewish people, which was in a very negative light and mirrored many anti-Semitic tropes, both of the day and that have been eternal and that are still with us. That's true of many early Zionist leaders. It's true of many people who look at our own Jewish community and say that. That is what I will say. Other people will call me a self-hating Jew because I oppose the actions of the state of Israel. This goes around all the time. But I'll tell you one thing, and I'm pretty confident in saying this. We can go across that political spectrum from one extreme to the other in the Jewish community, and we'll all agree that Aiden Ross is a self-hating Jew. I think we're all going to be in. I think you'll find a unanimity of opinion among Jews on that point that you won't find pretty much anywhere else. So, Representative Swalwell, that's where you need to focus. That's what you need to look at, because that man is talking to kids. That man is filling kids' heads with his ideas. I mean, when I mentioned, I didn't know who Aiden Ross is. I don't follow this world. He started off as a streamer on gaming, and then he went into the right wing politics. He's, I think, in his mid 20s. But as soon as I asked my son, who's 20, about him, as soon as I mentioned the name, he just went, ugh. It was this immediate reaction of, this guy is the worst. What are you even asking me about? He's horrible. It was just right away, and he went through and told me all about just how awful Aiden Ross was, and um, I looked up on some of the things that he has said, and uh, it was even worse than my son described in many ways. But he's very well known. He's very popular, at least in the sense of having a large audience. So young men are listening to him, and that's what you need to worry about, not Puka Nacua. And you certainly don't need to be calling a guy who's taken in by this huckster, this self-hating Jew who's selling out Jews in order to make himself a buck. That's who you need to focus on. That's who you need to worry about. And you sure as hell don't need to be doing this political grandstanding. And this is, I think, this was what motivated me to, make this video, which is, obviously on a subject that is of a little less importance than what I usually talk about. But I think this is where the significance comes in. It is enough. And again, it's bipartisan, it's nonpartisan, it's we see it among everyone. Enough with scoring points on anti-Jewish hatred, no matter where you come down on all of this stuff politically. None of these guys are serious about it. They're all just trying to show, look how I stand up for the Jews, and look how I stand up against anti-Semitism. Enough with the grandstanding. You make the problem worse. Eric Swalwell made this problem worse. He made this issue worse with a ridiculous statement that only puts it more front and center than it already was, and is unnecessary. To again, to subtly tie this to the attack in Australia is preposterous. This was one selfish, far right, loony guy taking in a young man who just didn't know any better. Okay, and we need to treat it as that. We need to take it seriously. We need to respond to it, and it shows the need for education, not grandstanding and calling people names. So I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. You'll see ways to support this work if you can. That would be much appreciated. And I will be talking to you soon.